Welcome, these will be my thoughts on Runaways, Season 2, Episode 5, Rock Bottom. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for the episode and the show leading up to it, and possibly other, MCU adjacent, and MCU shows we will see. And, another episode I love, so, the show is on quite the roll for me these days. And I am gonna start with some YouTube video recommendations. That's the term. So we are gonna wait a second. There we go. Yeah, I knew I had them right here. Okay, here we go. So in no particular order: awkward chocos. Wait, how did women become responsible? Some more news. Maybe society shouldn't be based on gambling. Hold on. Did I already? I think I already recommended some. Wow, my memory's really going down the drain. Okay, I think it's from here. Yeah. Alice Capel's The Manosphere Hates Westernized Girls. Science fiction with Damien Walters. You don't understand science fiction. Stop world building. Major Archetypes continuing series. Everything transphobic J.K. Rowling did. This one for 2021. Rebecca Watson's Penn and Teller and the Supreme Court and BS. No Way, No How. Professor Jung Makes You Stupid. And I know I have at least one more. Yeah. Edgier Than Thou's Andre Also Hates Fat People Now. So I am going to try not to just restate the strengths from other episodes. The show's continuing doing well what it has been doing well in this episode and the several before it. So I will try to keep this more or less chronological. So I really appreciate the way they handled the character of Topher. I suppose it's possible he will. I mean, Molly says she's not sure if he's alive or if he's dead. It looked like he died, but I mean, we don't know exactly how that works when it's someone who's got the super strength, so it's not impossible. And I mean, hypothetically, what's it called? I mean, maybe he could be resuscitated or something. We don't know for sure, but I am definitely satisfied if this is the last time we see him. I think, so, we find out later that this first thing he says, a lot of what he says is a lie. But I did quite appreciate that, when he, tells his story, immediately it is commenting on how, he lied before because he, what's the word? The way people see, users. He uses the term junkie, himself. And, he didn't come right out and say that it was like a drug for him. And what's the word? And later in the episode we realized that he was lying even during this episode, and there was that second where I was like, he lied again, and then I thought back to, well, yeah, because he knows how this all looks. If he told them that the reason he's not welcome in his own home, if he told them the truth, they would reject him. And if he told about how he was there at the explosion, they would have had questions. And so it's very nicely handled, in my opinion. Essentially, he less so with he somewhat reversed the truth. He said that he was kicked out of his, he said that he one day just left because his parents hurt him. We see very clearly blood on his face. His own, I think, is from his nose or possibly mouth. As in that flashback, and the implication is that one of his parents hit him, and the reality is he hurt his father, and thus was kicked out. And with the how he found the rocks, that one is less of a reversal, but it's definitely a redirect. He's saying that he just doesn't know how did those rocks get into that terrarium. But in reality, I mean, he didn't know much about the rocks before it was explained to him here, but he did know he didn't find them in the terrarium. Now, I think that does more or less cover. I quite appreciate it. So Molly says, he says he'll leave, and she says, "We need you," and then she admits, "I need you, but I think you can stay because Nico is okay with an honest junkie, and Chase and Alex have a mystery to solve." That was quite good. And I also really like the this I think is a good way to write Gert and her far left ways. And once again, I swear I am okay as a far leftist with our movement being criticized. That's one of the things I admire about the far left. We try to criticize each other, hold each other accountable far more than I see on when it comes to a lot of conservatives. Anyway, the the thing about, like, she points out that him pointing out their hypocrisy is whataboutism, and Chase says she was on the debate team, and I forget the rest of the line, but it was really good. And I think that does cover that entire so so Molly tells him about the dig site, and it is like, at this point she is still too trusting, but I do feel like the show and she are getting more of a handle on what her character should be like, because like I believe I said it in my at least one of my videos on season 1 episodes. I did think it was pretty silly, the thing about, like, I get it. I get what they were going for. I just don't think it worked when she was like trying out for the cheerleading cheer squad. Is that what it's called? Cheerleading team. It just felt like, really, like, where's this coming from? Like, this doesn't feel like her, really. And this thing of her wanting family feels much more like, I appreciate in both. It's about finding belonging, but this feels more like her. And let's see. At one point, Topher talks to Gert, and he says, "You're not right in the head, are you?" And then he says, I can get you medication, So he's not being the most sensitive about it, but he does seem to want to help. I mean, I don't think that Gert, like, it takes a while for her to trust anyone anyway, and I think he can read that. He's been living on the street for a while, so he must be good at reading people. I think that does bring us to I also continue to, like with the episode before this one, I think they're doing a much better job writing Eiffel now. I was a tiny bit worried when we saw her walking out of the building. I was a tiny bit worried because I felt like, okay, that was a perfect place to cut off that scene, to just make it, so that it doesn't get to be just like us rolling our eyes at like a teenage girl. Like, can we just not? And we don't even have to say we did. And yeah, turns out, that was just establishing, no, she is leaving now. She's gone. There's no more of her in that building, and not for the rest of the episode. But yeah, she lawyered up, and they keep pointing out, you're not under arrest. Like, what are you even, she's watched so much like Law and Order or something, and it's just, yeah. Let's see. I think that does. Yeah, and at one point the lawyers are like, you should get immunity. Are you gonna grant me immunity? You're not under arrest. What do you mean immunity? You don't need lawyers, Eiffel. And the two scientists are like, immunity, you got it. And yeah, because like she's not listening. She's not going to actually go along with it. Yeah, her head is full of these, cliches. It made me chuckle when she corrected Alex's own parents on Alex's name. And yeah, I mean, I think part of what makes it work, part of what makes it not feel like we're just like laughing at, this, member of a minority. Like, listen, I appreciate that, it's, teenagers, including teenage girls, can be really mean and do things that hurt other people. I appreciate that. It just feels like she's one of the only teen characters who get a decent amount of screen time on the show who really doesn't particularly get redeeming value. Redeeming anything. It's just because like each of the Runaways can be, can have made mistakes, but they also get humanizing, scenes. So, but part of what works here is the fact that, I don't know, I mean, I guess I can only speak for myself, but personally, I was laughing more at the fact that, Pride, like they think, oh, this is it. We're gonna really get, yeah, that they're so used to being able to accomplish things, and here they are faced with someone who doesn't really have information. Like she doesn't even she barely even answers their questions, and just yeah, and we find out that the thing that she wanted was just for him to be part of the selfie, and yeah, I see one of the reasons I think that's part of the joke of the scene is after Eiffel has explained it, one of the parents, I forget who, is like, who is the celebrity you just mentioned and why is that even relevant? It's more like a generational conflict, like clash there, than just like laughing at this, because it's also like, well, if you don't care, why are you even talking about it? Like, like, I'm sorry, in that situation, I'd probably say, Eiffel, that's great. Here are our questions, though. Like, why are you getting distracted by a celebrity like that? I feel like that's almost making her point. And I'm not one of those people who like worship celebrities or anything, but just like got your attention, didn't it? And the a person who doesn't even apparently doesn't even know who the celebrity is. Anyway, I think that does. Yeah, I liked the talk about, so they realized that Carolina was with Jonah, and they, looks like some secrets might come out, but it's still, there's only so much. And yeah, I also thought they did a good job in this episode writing the two scientists, because you've got the thing about like, well, he spotted us. He definitely spotted us. That doesn't make sense. I know we're usually so stealthy, and then they just move on. We just, it's as long as you don't like. Honestly, I think this might be my favorite episode. Come to think of it, it's the one where I have the least things that at all bother me. Yeah, it they as long as you just have like a quick joke with the two of them, it works. They are both funny under the right circumstances. Yeah, I think that does pretty much get us to, yeah, we have the thing with Robert, I think is his name, talking, he has a plan. And it is genuinely clever, and I love that we don't find out what it is until we're seeing it in action. Very nicely done. And I also appreciated Frank's little arc in this episode. He, yeah, close to Jonah, and the thing about like, you didn't have to summon me. And the thing about, like, you know, have you ever noticed how these two are always together, like the twins from The Shining? That is very much the kind of reference an actor would make. I appreciate that. That's yeah. Like there is an actual thing about, like, you know, I've heard actors express, not to me personally, obviously, but like, you know, there have been actors who have expressed, you know, oh, if only I could have worked with Stanley Kubrick, you know. So that's quite fun. And yeah, Jonah sends him to get a runaway, not one of the titular runaways. And the yeah, you know, by the end of the episode, he's refused, and it actually sort of, you know, the relationship between him and Carolina's mom helps, you know, is improved there. I mean, the bar is well, let's see, on TV14 I can say hell. That's where the bar is, and yeah, let's see. Right. Oh, now I remember the thing I really want to say. Yeah, I loved seeing Carolina get some information, and we also get a little. And I hope they keep this up because, you know, this was what I mentioned. I think it was in my video on the episode before this one. As long as they just keep the CG to a minimum. Like, I think the hand might have been CG, or maybe they did just film a hand against green screen and then just add the colors to it. Because I mean, that is what they're doing with, I believe her name is Virginia Gardner, who plays Carolina. You know, it's clearly not CG. They do not have the budget to do that with CG. They're adding the color to the actress's performance. But the yeah, and you know, now she knows that she is an alien. Fun fact: originally, Jonah did not perceive himself as an alien, but do you know that song that the actor who plays Biff in Back to the Future wrote, where he talks about being asked the same question over and over? That might be the worst joke I've told in a while. Sorry. Anyway, the yes, the thing about how, yeah, you know, it's the quakes are being caused by the gravitational, the anti-gravity of the ship, you know, which, yeah, I can see it. Jonah wants to dig out the spaceship, fly him and Carolina, and I guess maybe Pride away, and that's, you know, yeah, that's his plan, and I really appreciate it. Like, I mean, it is in part a testament to Julian McMahon's talent, you know, but I genuinely kind of felt bad for Jonah. Like, I still hope he fails, you know, but, you know, that part where he's like, I've been trying to get to my family for so long, you know, just like, yeah, talking about the aliens in the ship. That was genuinely moving. And I think that does bring us to the, yeah, I quite like the, I thought they did a really great job with, you know, and another thing about Topher, when he was just gone and he didn't say anything to anyone, I kept waiting, like, until we saw the map was missing. I kept waiting for him to, like, pop back up and be like, what are you guys talking about? And, like, make eye contact with Gert and be like, that thing we talked about, you know, I took care of it. But yeah, and she seems to think so too. She just says toothpaste instead of, you know, medication. But yeah, like, even she started to kind of trust him. And right, the part where Carolina comes home, so it's not really confirmed or denied by the end of this episode. I kept waiting near the end for Alex to try to turn the computer on and for something to be, I don't know, I mean, I guess maybe he has already and there wasn't anything, I don't know. But I do hope that Carolina did not manage to destroy the computers, to disable it, because that was one thing I found very frustrating in season one. With that was when they did that with the tapes. Now, I also think this works well as, this is the midpoint of both the season and the entire show. And yeah, like we've, Carolina has met one of the aliens and knows some details there, and they're, yeah, it's, I'm genuinely not 100% sure if maybe by the end of this season that the whole Jonah thing is going to be resolved, or if they really are going to get it into the next season as well. But let's see. I feel like that pretty much. I like the, did Molly just curse? Well, PG-13, but yes. And yeah, I appreciate them underlining that because that is very unusual. And let's see. Yeah, them discussing like what are they even going to do. I also liked the detail that once Topher told the truth, even Nico trusted him enough that she just gave the rocks back. I actually thought that was going to lead to another discussion or something. And I appreciated Topher pointing out, he's not asking questions about the dinosaur or the staff of one. Although, of course, by the end we do realize it is because, like, genuinely, like, he's using the rocks as a drug to kill the pain, and he wants to get back with his family. Those are the things. Like, to a certain extent, he doesn't really care about the other, magic stuff. But yeah, once they realize for sure he is, gone, he brought the map and everything. Genuinely really compelling, this thing of like, well, we got a bunch of characters headed to the dig site, and there are different reasons why it's very emotional for each of them. Carolina, because the aliens are down there, and she's just, I don't think she's ready to be on board with the idea that they should just like kill them, even if it means that they, would be saving people. I get the sense that she wants a different solution for that. I mean, I don't think that she's okay with the quakes worsening. And Gert wants to get Topher back for the medication. Molly wants to get Topher back because she considers him family. Just yeah, I thought that worked quite well. And also I like the thing about, right, another thing he said he asked questions about were the Fistigons, and afterwards Chase is like, was the One Direction reference an insult or a compliment? And I'm also like, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I guess it depends on whether on Topher's music taste or something, but yeah. I mean, it's not like he compared him to someone that's like, I don't know. I've heard very little of their music, but some of it seemed fine. If you like pop music, I guess it's a. He could have like compared. I mean, if he was gonna like make some pop culture reference and have it be like, okay, that's an insult. Vanilla Ice is right there. Like that's yeah. And let's see. I think, to be clear, I'm not saying that Vanilla Ice is not also conventionally attractive, like physically speaking, like One Direction, but I don't know. Is anybody still pretending to like any Vanilla Ice music? Oh, right, people who actually like Ice. That was beyond pathetic. Have you seen the video? You don't have to look it up if you haven't, but there's video of let's see. I guess MAGA cabinet members dancing to Ice Ice Baby, and it's just, yeah. Wow. I don't know. I just think these. So white supremacists keep talking about how like, oh, they have all the great art, and then like the ones that will, the ones that MAGA point to and don't sue them for using the music and such. It's like, Vanilla Ice and Kid Rock. Like, now I think that might bring us to, I feel like there's at least one more thing I want to, right, yeah, so they drive there, and you know, I thought it worked well. Good use of the budget. That you know, we don't see exactly what happened. We don't see him tear the door off. We don't see him throw that one guy that caught him with the rocks, but we do see the conflict in the house and right outside it, because that's where the emotion is. You know, so very, very nicely done. And it's more important that the door is seen having been torn off by the runaways. Now, let's see. I think that does bring us to the the car chase was genuinely both, you know, exciting and just, yeah, really, it really worked. I also thought they did a good job with, like, there's a little bit of comedic relief, but it doesn't overpower it. You know, I would like to think that the joke about Gert driving is more like teenager who doesn't have a lot of experience driving, more than like one of those obnoxious women can't drive jokes. Like, if you actually look at the statistics, it's completely absurd. Um, you know, it's one of those stereotypes, like many bigoted stereotypes. It was thought up by bigots to propagandize against someone who was being seen as a human being, maybe gaining a little bit of civil rights and power and such. Just, yeah. Because that's the thing. Have you ever noticed how misogynists will both say that women are terrible drivers, but also misogynistic men hate being asked to drive their female partner to a store? Like, which is it though? Like, genuinely, because why would you lie about women's ability to drive? And anyone who has the internet, you can look up the statistics. You know, maybe you don't realize that you're spreading a lie, but ignorance really isn't an excuse. You can find it in seconds. You know, the only reason to spread that lie would be to make sure that women don't drive, because driving leads to independence. If she can drive, what's to stop her from driving away from you? I don't know. I mean, if she feels safe and loved around, you know, by you, probably. Have you considered that? Probably not. Anyway, the let's see. Yeah, and also, like, I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be funny. To me, it worked for the tension when Gert is like checking his various, you know, each time Topher does, you know, there's the thing about like that was an illegal left turn, you know, stuff like that. And you know, someone else is like, well, that happens all the time in LA. You know, it's the tension of, you know, because I was worried that there was going to be a car crash, and they're near the, you know, right before they find him, that we see, like, was it a kid on a skateboard or something? I was genuinely worried that they were going to almost hit that kid or something, or maybe Topher would. But the let's see, the other thing there was that the yeah, you know, we're again seeing like Gert is struggling with how much the medication is. Yes, so they find the right place and they go in there. I will say it was a tiny bit like this thing of, you know, this place is nothing like you described it, and we see, you know, oh, there's a picture and they all look happy, and it's like, I mean, I don't think that automatically means that they weren't abusive towards him, because it feels a little bit like saying, well, I never saw any signs of, like, yeah, I mean, you might not. Like, a lot of abusers are really good at covering that kind of thing up. That felt a little bit, yeah, but I appreciate they needed something, you know, and they needed, and it was specifically, it had to be visual shorthand. They can't have like a flashback there. In my opinion, that would be, it would kill the pacing. But yeah, I appreciate, you know, he tells them to go outside, and, you know, he tries to talk his family into accepting him back. And yeah, once again, they really are covering this thing of like drug use fairly well. It's this thing of like, because like, it is sadly true, some drug users do end up harming their family, and thus, for in those cases, it is understandable if they end up kicked out of the home or that sort of thing. And yeah, so we have the thing with the I like that Chase's instinct is to intervene, even if, like, rationally he knows there's no way he's strong enough to stop Topher, but it just, I mean, in season 1 when he, got Carolina out of that party with that was also a situation that could have gone really, really badly for him. So that's Anyway, and Topher says, "None of you can stop me." And then Molly says, "I think I can. Please don't make me find out." I appreciate it because it's like there's a level of like empathy and like tenderness there, but she's also being kind of a badass. I quite appreciated that balance there. And we go back out to Gert in the car, still very tense, and then we hear screaming, glass smashing, and then Molly, is thrown out of the building. And I really appreciate that we don't see him throw. That's again, budget thing, and it means they can do more other things because again, like, we know what happened. We don't need to see it. The important thing is that Topher just threw her. I mean, there's a saying that God doesn't close a door without opening a window. Topher, however, says, "That door is open, I will throw you out it." And the entire fight, all the little details, the way that, the thing about, well, fistigons aren't going to work, can't get a clear shot. And, Molly keeps telling Nico, don't use the staff. And ultimately, let's see. I think isn't he the one who throws the dumpster, and Nico gets it deflected, and then is about to hit Gert in the car, and we know, I mean, other than the fact she doesn't have time, we're seeing it in slow motion, but it's obviously happening in real time. Gert is not gonna get out of there. And there's no way she's gonna live if it had hit her like that. Seeing that, Topher's reaction is not to run, not to make excuses, but to use his super strength to push the car away. I don't think Molly could have gotten there in time, so he was the only hope. And he knew, he threw it. He knows how heavy it is. He knows he's probably not going to have time to, readjust to like catch it midair. Yeah, he did sacrifice himself. The last thing we see him do in this episode, and possibly in the show, is this very redemptive action. So I really appreciated that. And I also, this thing of them fighting, there was a 911 call. Like, I'm sure that this is going to mean, more, there's a couple of things here. More people are going to know about the superpowers. Up to this point, it was very, very few people who actually knew about those. And I figure, like, there's going to be enough in the way of, like, witness description of them, that the Runaways, the Pride are going to know that was the Runaways. And, I mean, I wouldn't rule out that is, and hypothetically, I mean, maybe they could go around telling people, hey, have you seen, this is my kid. I really need them home. They have superpowers, but they don't know how to use them. I'm afraid for their safety or safety of others. Something like that. That could be, And yeah, I quite liked Janet going in and talking to him and pointing out, I'm going to ignore what you just said about the food. Could you stop thinking about processed cheese for 1 minute? And, you know, the thing about, like, you know, okay, so this thing exists. Can you destroy it? I want to destroy something I just realized exists. See, he really is a scientist. And, you know, she points out, you know, well, Earth, you're living on it, you know, so is your son. And he says, you know, he will, and he starts writing, and he goes, I love that woman because she reprogrammed it to make the cheese whiz. That's wonderful. Just, yeah. Find you a partner who will reprogram the, you know, holographic, you know, prison you're trapped in, so that the food you want is just the way you like it. And I think that does, yeah, I a good setup and payoff on I'm afraid I forgot their names already, but the two, you know, the Shining twins, as Frank refers to them. That you know, they're like, well, the door was open, so we came in. Is that okay? Is it okay if we save your life? And yeah, also Robert looking badass. I am honestly not entirely sure if he's still alive there at the end, and I appreciate that we don't know for sure. I mean, I feel like probably, because, like, would Jonah really bring a corpse in that? I mean, if Robert really is dead, him dumping the corpse there might cause problems for Pride. Doesn't he still need them for something? Certainly he hasn't chosen to kill. But I do like, you know, it's very much a power move. He's like, you know, I believe this belongs to you. You know, he's saying, this is what happens when you try to kill me. People who believe in me will try to kill you. And very clever. You know, he analyzed the wristband for Carolina, and, you know, increased the intensity. He was gonna increase the intensity some more, and that Jonah is clever. And it again is like, if Jonah wasn't, like, you know, it's like he just sat in Jonah's office. You know, he hacked his way in because, you know, WizTech and all, and set up this thing, and that's all that was necessary, you know. And Jonah has, because of Jonah's sense of superiority, you know, like, I'm sorry, if I see my worst enemy in my office, I'm probably thinking, this is a trap, isn't it? You know, but he is so convinced. You know, he even, like, when talking to Carolina, he talks about humans as, you know, that's those people, you know, they, that you know, you noticed how when the far right wants to criticize a group of people, they like to just say they, and you can kind of, you know, just slot in whoever you personally hate. Now, to be fair, some of them do come right out and say that it's a particular minority group that they have an irrational hatred towards. Anyway, yeah, I also liked, so Robert knew what he was doing, you know, like, Jonah comes in and says, please do not tell me that you are pouring my very expensive liquor over ice, you know. And it's, yeah, Robert is high class enough to know that that's, like, I have to admit, I had no idea, but I can totally see it. Like, yeah, because it's like watering it down, right? Like, so it's making it less, yeah. I think that does pretty much cover that entire thing. Let's see. There's at least some more stuff I really want to make sure. Yeah, I like the way the episode ends. The whole thing with, yeah. So after, yeah, I'll try to take it chronologically. So they go home, and there's a thing about that was a silent car ride, you know, which, like, so in other words, Gert and Molly are upset, you know, because that's like, I mean, the others can be talkative as well, but I feel like they're probably, you know, maybe all, you know, Alex under certain circumstances, Chase, all of them really. But, like, it is, you know, when Molly's in a good mood, she talks a lot, and yeah, I thought it really worked that, because she doesn't really hugely cross a line. Like, it is kind of true, and I don't think there's even one character left by the end of the episode who's really said that was just completely ridiculous. Like, everyone who comments on it is like, it's kind of true. Nico's behaving like her mother right now. It's sounding like, which was also funny because, like, your mom is like shorthand, like punchline. So but she's not making a joke anyway. The let's see. I think that does pretty much cover. Yeah, and Molly thinks that Nico sent Gert, and Gert says she's actually proud of her, and points out this, the Runaways are Molly's family, which also makes it interesting that she seems to be leaving the Runaways there at the end of the episode. But I'll get to it when I get to it. But yeah, the part where Carolina talks to Nico, and she doesn't really say, Molly was, yeah, I already mentioned that. So, but the thing about, when she's talking about, like, well, Molly felt alone, she wanted to feel less alone, and the acting, these subtle little things where it's clear, like, she's, Nico picks up that, oh, Carolina's talking about, she's basing it on her own experience right now. But we can also see from Carolina's face, she's being careful not to accidentally reveal something that Nico doesn't already know. That's, yeah, because both of them have put trust, perhaps undue trust, in someone that appears to be their family. And, yeah, if Carolina was like, I mean, who wouldn't talk to their long lost family? Oops, that's it, yeah. And I also really like the thing about, like, hey, light, your light, not your little light, although that is very cool, but your inside light, that was very, very sweet. And appreciate how they're continuing to, like, a lot of American media, if it's gonna have any kind of sapphic romance, they like to make them hypersexual. It's so ridiculous. Like, I swear, something just breaks in the brain of a lot of sex negative people's, yeah, perception when they're like, as soon as they start thinking about anyone not cishet, it's ridiculous. Like, why are non-straights somehow more sexual than straights? Like, it literally doesn't make any sense. It's just this idea that as soon as you take one step in that direction, you might as well go the whole way, and suddenly you're doing these genuinely unethical things, rather than just like, well, there's plenty of people who don't. I mean, there's people of all, different. There's plenty of straight people who engage in unethical sex, and frankly, if we look at the numbers, like, a lot of rapists are straight. That's yeah. Anyway, but yeah, the way the sapphic, in general, romance stuff on the show so far is handled, it's not really like that. Like, there's some kissing, but then the camera respectfully pulls back away. And let's see, I think that does pretty much. Yeah, did I mention, I really like that Nico herself even says, Molly's not really wrong, and that is genuinely something, I think every young person at some point or another has to contend with. Am I emulating things about my parents that I don't want to be? I feel like that pretty much brings us to that last little bit of wrap up. Let's see. Is there anything else with Pride? Maybe not. The oh, right, I did like, am I remembering right? Wasn't it Catherine, the lawyer, who kept telling Eiffel, you don't need a lawyer? And Eiffel just refuses to listen because, she's like, listen, I have watched more than enough of these propaganda shows. Okay, I know that's just something cops say in order to get a coerced statement, and you're not gonna play that with me. And let's see, I like there was one shot of the lawyer of the two lawyers where they almost have like faces where it's like, oh crap, this other lawyer's onto us, because they're just like, listen, we're getting paid, like we don't really care if this rich young person actually needs our help. And I think that pretty much. Yeah, I mean, part of it is also just, she asks like she asks for immunity, and it's like, immunity from what? Like, as pointed out, she's not under arrest, but it's also like, what crime is she supposedly even being charged with? Like, I mean, I guess at most maybe obstruction of justice, but they're no longer refugees, fugitives. That's it. Like I'm fairly confident it is not illegal just to like do something that school administrators have told you shouldn't do. It's not illegal to stay inside a building that is being evacuated because of an earthquake. I'm fairly confident, so it's yeah, at least not the circumstances that we're seeing here. I think that does, yeah. So we have the wrap up. I like them talking about like, what is even normal anymore. And yeah, Alex and Chase, it's good to see them working together in a way that isn't, and the thing about like, it really is called The Shaft. Because he like appreciates it. It sounds like something else, I like to think one of the writers did a happy dance when they realized that they could write in that reference. Because like, you could just see the censors being like, you can't use that word. And the writers being like, are you not familiar with the sport? And the I think, and they also, I feel like they have a plausible deniability, because it doesn't sound that much like, it's just the word shaft, and then he says it's a very personal thing. That there are significantly more like unambiguous, uh, metaphors for yeah, keeping it TV-14. Don't worry. I think the there's at least one more thing that I really wanted to make sure to say. I loved when Molly said, "We've become the bad guys now. Topher was in pain. He needed help. And we may have killed him." That was really, really effective, because that is the thing, I know I've said it before in other, videos I've done on various vigilante media, but, by now, you got to somehow comment on, is vigilantism solving anything, or does it just make things worse? How are you sure you're the good guy here? And they absolutely, that's such a good point. Like, this does not leave them seeming like heroes. That is yeah. And I was impressed by how, because early in the episode I thought that by the end of this episode they would have gone back to the dig site, and ultimately, I mean, they went to the area, but they didn't go close to, and yeah, I 100% accept they had to deal with Topher first, because it's one of those things, some of these shows, they kind of have to pad, and this did not feel like padding. This was interesting character exploration, and there was plot development, and yeah. Yes, so that brings us to, so yeah, the near the end, we see one of the last things we see. Maybe it is the last thing we see in this episode. Not Molly. Gert is right. I also like the thing with the you know, Molly is my sister. I am not your sister, Topher. And he says he'll do it. He'll get the medication for and then he says something like, my sister's sister is my sister. So what you're saying is you are your sister's brother. And there at the end, she's in the hospital. And I like that we didn't see immediately. We just saw a hospital bed, and the doctor or something was standing in front of the person, and then we get to see, and it's Gert. I don't know why I keep almost calling her Molly. I thought that would reveal Topher there, and maybe like a cop questioning him, because that was also an important issue raised early in the episode. He can tell the cops everything about the Runaways, so yeah. And or at the very least where they're staying, and it might take them a while to find another place. It might be more easy to find him and stop him from talking than finding a new place that actually works for them. Gert even left old lace behind, but I suppose it would be difficult. Like, she's not exactly going to be able to bring that to the hospital. But we even get a line about, do you feel better now? Great, your parents are on the way. So she did get some medication. I mean, if in America, if you have money at least, if you go to a hospital and they can see, oh, this person has this particular, treatable thing, under at least some circumstances, you can pretty quickly get medication for it if you make it clear that you've been without the medication and that is a plausible story, But I don't know if she really is intending to stay until her parents arrive, or if she's gonna go back to the Runaways as soon as that, the carer there walks away, hypothetically. I don't know. I mean, maybe seeing Topher with his family, got her thinking that maybe she should go back to her family. I mean, they don't know yet that Pride is working against Jonah, so it's not that. But I do understand if she just needs that medication so badly. I guess, is there any chance that she's intending to run away as soon as she gets the medication, maybe? Like, as once she gets her hands on it, she's going to stuff it into a bag and go back to the Runaways, maybe? But it's definitely, like, if she is going to stay with her parents now, that is potentially a very interesting development. I really don't think she's going to ruin it for the rest of them. And clearly, like, as much as she might want to go back to her parents, none of the others actually do. So I think that might just about cover it. Yeah, looking forward to more. I also really like that, yeah, by the end of this episode, Jonah has not gotten the runaway sacrifice, so I guess he's going to have to, Frank says he's going to have to find his own, I mean, he's kind of running out of people that he can, I mean, is he seriously going to tell the two, I mean, he did say, you just went ultra, which is a good, yeah, that's a cult for you. If you do something that the cult leader really wants, he's going to reward you. I mean, they did technically assault someone. They didn't even try to talk Robert down or anything. I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. In that circumstance, I might just, like, say, turn that thing off, or I'll call the police or something, Anyway, I think, yeah, I don't know that he's going to have them do it. And obviously no one from Pride is going to help find another runaway. Yeah, I think that pretty much does cover the entire episode. So yeah, I really do hope that Carolina did not destroy the hacking computer. I did also like them talking about, like, well, Alex is, a master hacker. The first words as he came out of the womb were actually, "I'm in," which is somewhat ironic. But, yeah. Nico catches Carolina before and she also said, I don't even know what I'm doing, so she doesn't master it well enough yet to for sure know how to disable a piece of electronic equipment with her powers. It worked last time, but might not have this time. But yeah, Nico's like, what are you doing in Alex's room? And, she ends up claiming, oh, I'm just so eager to do this thing. That's me, Eager Beaver. And, yeah. After Nico says, I'm wondering what you're doing in Alex's room, and then Alex is like, Alex is also wondering what Carolina is doing in Alex's room, at which point Carolina goes, well, Carolina doesn't think she should have to explain to Alex, and can we stop talking and referring to ourselves in the third person?